My name is James Eastleake. I'm a filmmaker from Ballyfermot, Dublin. Throughout my teenage years, I would make films that dealt with the issue around drugs. I intended to reflect my own experience in these short films. They were all perceived very well, even winning us a couple of awards too. As happy as I was winning these awards and receiving the recognition, I felt somewhat hypocritical, as this was when I was drinking and smoking the most myself. Thankfully, I didn't let it consume me, but I know others aren't so lucky. I stepped away from that style of filmmaking, and now I'm looking to get back into it. I believe alcohol and substance use is on a rise again. Statistics show we're heading back into a dark period. I wanted to take on this project to gain an even better insight into the life of alcohol abuse and drug use. I wanted to gain an in-depth analysis of what the lifestyle is like and what led people to making the life decisions they made. This is Cans on the Canal.
Complicated and much talked about relationship with alcohol, and today it was revealed just how
much. We have an enormous issue with alcohol in this country, and I do believe that we are in complete denial about it. I think
see, a lot of people are going to be surprised that 5 or 6 drinks of course per day.
It's the highest amount since 2008.
How many drinks would you think is kind of okay?
Well, I don't define these things. There is a definition.
What is it?
More than 6 units of alcohol.
Do you think that is kind of realistic?
I've got 1.3.
Government will make a decision on the matter.
Advice highlights the urgent need for a comprehensive alcohol strategy to be implemented.
The average drinker is consuming a bottle of whiskey per week.
2/3 of our young men and young women in universities are drinking excessively. We have one of the highest rates of young male suicide in the world in this country.
Yeah, you must be horrified, are you?
By young people who are growing up into a culture that is predisposing them to drink heavily.
I'm first meeting with a man by the name of Justin John Carroll. Justin is a counsellor and a psychotherapist who will be helping me develop a better understanding around addiction, what it is and how it comes over people.
So I'm Justin, and at the moment I'm a qualified counsellor and psychotherapist. Anytime you introduce a toxin into your system, the brain releases extra dopamine and serotonin because it thinks the body is under attack. Here comes a toxin, it's a poison. I need to release dopamine and serotonin from the brain. Is what it actually makes you feel high. So ironically, you're never actually addicted to the substance. I know it looks like that on the surface, but the substance that people seem to be addicted to is actually just the catalyst for getting your brain to release extra endogenous morphines, and that's what you're actually addicted to. Because those are the biochemicals that make you feel comforted and at peace within. What you're trying to do is soothe the pain. I think one of the confusions is that people think that addiction is to do with substances. Well, it can be to do with substances, but it can also be to do with behaviour. If you have a certain kind of behaviour which acts on you in the same way that a substance would addict you, it's doing the same job. For somebody who compulsively needs to drink or compulsively needs to smoke, I think anything that affects your equilibrium, you should be able to take it or leave it. If it's a healthy attachment, you should be able to take it or leave it, whatever it is. If there's any sense of I can't do without it, you might be on a path to a greater addiction. 9 times out of 10, there's some kind of childhood trauma or some kind of adolescent trauma. Now, it's not always going to be that, but likely as not, it will stem from that part of somebody's development. And usually what happens is that causes an emotional pain, a psychological and or emotional pain. So how are you going to deal with that pain? We aren't taught healthy ways, healthy strategies to deal with emotional pain or psychological pain in school. Largely people who develop a real problem with substance abuse have pre-existing conditions. And if you have pre-existing conditions which make you needful for a feeling of comfort, self-soothing, and you drink a pint of alcohol and it immediately meets those requirements, then you could be addicted instantly. So you might have push factors like bullying, you've been bullied, and then you might have pull factors like you have a drink and you feel more confident. That's a pull factor. But I would probably argue the case that most people start with push factors, which is, I don't feel good about myself, I feel afraid, or I feel, something negative, or, or I'm angry. Can you imagine like somebody who maybe has experienced physical or sexual abuse, or even just, or just been neglected? They're going to have a massive push factor to want to make themselves feel better. What we need to do, I feel, as a society, is stop looking at the quick fixes. So first of all, we need to start looking at the truth of what the pain is. So we all need to become more honest about what have I been through and what is the pain that is caused from what I've been through. And now how do I manage that pain, or come to an acceptance of that, whatever that pain or hurt is, in a much more healthy way, which means using healthy approaches, healthy activities, strategies that don't involve quick fixes. So an obvious example would be, instead of going down to the pub and sinking 10 pints, you go out for a run, or you meditate. Those are activities that will genuinely support you, both physiologically and in terms of psychologically and emotionally, whereas something like drinking heavily appears to do that, and it may even do it momentarily, but it's very, very transient. As soon as you sober up, you have all the same problems you had before you started drinking, and now you've got a hangover as well. So it's actually worse than when you started. So when you're attached to something like alcohol, essentially, while you're quite heavily addicted, or quite, the attachment is quite strong, essentially your normal developmental lines stop, and it's almost like you're frozen at that age whilst you keep drinking and drinking and drinking, and it's an arrested development. You're not continuing to develop into the maturity of an adult and learning how to negotiate proper relationships with different people, and take responsibility for your own life and your own self. You just kind of stop where you are, and rely on the drink for everything. You could say that a lot of these comforting behaviours are a substitute for, that motherly nurturing behaviour that is provided to you when you're a baby, if you're fortunate enough to receive that. So I suppose the responsibility that you have to come to is in yourself. And this is why it's difficult for addicts, because the patterns are so ingrained over so much time. But taking on that responsibility is also saying, I am now going to take on the responsibility of nurturing myself. I'm going to look after myself. I'm going to give myself good food, healthy food, good proper sleep, plenty of water, plenty of exercise. That's taking the responsibility on yourself. And I suppose if you've never received that growing up, there's almost a resentment about, well, why should I? Why should I have to do all these things for myself? Why doesn't somebody come and sort me out, or save me? But the reality is, you've got to save yourself. Well, from what I can gather, it's escalating. So I believe it was already quite bad, and also quite pronounced historically. But since the last 2 years of the pandemic and the lockdowns, I've read a number of articles that have said that drinking has escalated in the home. I think, of course, individually we need to keep an eye on where we're at in relation to things like alcohol, but I think also collectively as a nation, look at, is my life becoming problematic because of this thing that I'm doing? So it's pinning it down and saying, so if it is drinking, is my drinking making my life unmanageable? Making it problematic to the point that every day is a drama? Every week is a major drama? Am I having problems getting up in the morning? Am I having problems doing the domestic, the household chores? Am I having problems managing my finances? Is it directly related to my drinking? Am I drinking every day? Am I drinking every night? Am I drinking on my own? When I buy a drink, do I go for something that I know is strong over taste, or am I going for something that I prefer the flavour of, even though it might be weaker in alcohol content? So these are questions you can ask yourself to start looking at, could there be a problem here? The other thing you could do is you can ask people around you. So often we are reticent to approach people who we think might be developing a problem and say anything for fear of what might come back. But if the person themselves goes around and asks the question, then of course you can offer feedback. So if you thought you had a problem with drink and you went to your mates and said, hey, listen, do you think I drink too much? Or do you think I'm drinking too many times a week? You've opened the forum of discussion. So then you're more likely to get the truthful feedback from them. And they might say, yeah, or they might say, no, you're only drinking the same as the rest of us. And okay, and then maybe you're reassured, but let's say, well, actually, I've noticed that every time we go out, you drink more than everybody else. Or you drink stronger than everybody else. You come off the pints sooner and go on to the spirits earlier. So there's a few little things like that which you could, use to have a look at how am I in my relationship with alcohol or whatever the substance or behaviour might be. And then if you establish that you think it is problematic or it might be becoming problematic, then you need a course of action. You might like to try something like going to an AA meeting, because actually group therapy work is really supportive, very supportive, because straight away you're in a room with people who either have a problem themselves or think they might have a problem themselves. So you're in an area where there's going to be no judgments, and you're going to be fully supported by those people who are experiencing either the same thing or something similar. You might like to go and seek out a particular kind of one-to-one help, like going to a counsellor or therapist to investigate further what kind of things are going on for you behind the scenes, and is that feeding into your behaviours in the present. Generally speaking, whatever's going on for you in the present, especially if it's problematical, like I'd say generally anyway, but especially if it's problematical, is coming from the past, most likely. Who you are today is like the end point of everything that's happened to you since you were born. So it's worth looking back and saying, well, can I identify what that might be? Do I feel needy for something? Am I aware that I want to feel comforted? Am I aware that I want to feel more confidence? One of the problems with substance abuse is that it distorts the mental faculties. So you're not thinking clearly, and if you're not thinking clearly, you're not behaving clearly, and also it lowers inhibitions. I would argue it even promotes a kind of immaturity and a kind of almost feral nature. In an ideal world, you would have some of that built into the schooling. So as people are going through school, there'd be some kind of information about addiction and how it works and how it might creep up on you, so that when you go out into the world and you inevitably start drinking, as most people do, you at least have an awareness of this thing that I'm doing could become a problem. It could become problematic.
I learnt a lot from Justin. He even gave me a book he wrote called The Truth About Drugs and Addiction. As I was reading the book, I quickly noticed how he was speaking about his own addiction. This is something I wasn't aware of, and I wanted to know more. So I decided to give him a call to see if he was willing to share any more about his own addiction.
By the time I got to sort of 27, 28, I think, I found myself drinking every day, and at one point my father came around, and I actually said to him, I think there might be a serious issue here, and I might need to go to the AA. And then I went to AA meetings it was only about 2 months. It was really jarring, really uncomfortable, and I was able to kind of step away from the AA meetings because I felt like I'd learned what I needed to learn, or so I thought. Then a few things started to converge at the same time. I think I had a breakup in a relationship. There was some financial pressure, I think, as well, and I was kind of getting fed up in the job. The convergence of these things and the huge span of time where I hadn't been drinking, I kind of somewhat foolishly thought, oh, I must be alright now. And I had this one beer, and I think the next day I went straight to the off licence and got 4 beers, and the next day I went back to the off licence and got 6 beers, and the next day I went back and got 8 beers. Before I knew it, I was drinking every night. So then that went on for about a year and a half. There were quite a few nights where I slept rough in London. The worst point, I was, I had no money and I was wandering through St James's Park, and I was going through the bin looking for something to eat. It's what they call rock bottom if you're talking to people who've been to the AA, and from there the only way is back up, hopefully, if you can manage that. And then I had the opportunity to come to Ireland, so I took it and I came over here, and I helped my aunt. So I thought, right, I really want to do something constructive. And as it happened, I was just going through the Wexford People one day, and I saw an ad for an introduction course to counselling and psychotherapy. Probably a few weeks into it, and I thought, yeah, this is really, really good. I definitely want to go down this road. So it's like a massive turnaround from literally the absolute bottom to becoming hopefully a more sort of constructive member of society who's going to contribute something that's going to now pay it back and help and support other people. So both with the counselling and psychotherapy work, I want to sort of do things that are going to maybe inspire or other people, or make them feel supported in some way.
I was surprised to find out about Justin's addiction. It goes to show that addiction can creep up on just about anybody, but it is possible you can turn your life around. I was able to grab a quick interview with a man by the name of Jason. Jason has led a hard life, from his childhood to his battle with drug addiction, then the time he spent in prison. Things are now on the uprise for Jason. He now makes TikTok content for his 14,000 followers, shedding light on the issues that surround the prison system and drug use.
My mother was an alcoholic, my father was an alcoholic, their friends were alcoholics. So we seen that, growing up as in a family of nine kids, we all seen that, seeing the violence, and that betrayed itself onto us. And I just need to pick it up more than others. So my whole life was plagued with violence all through my whole childhood through to being a teenager. Then when I became a teenager, they started hitting me with charge sheets. Being violent wasn't allowed anymore. So then I ended up in jail at 16 for my violence. Yeah, so look, let's say I got into an argument with the outfit. If we went down and used heroin, I'd just forget about it. But we'll have to deal with it when I'm sober. Yeah. Just at that time, for them, for a couple of hours, it was worth it. At times it was a great wall blocker, it was a great barrier. But then at times it can send me off my head, yeah. So, and my mum and dad splitting up and their divorce, that was a big impact on the behavioural issues as well, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was shown from psychologist to psychologist to professor to find out what was wrong. And they finally put me on a medication called Ritalin. But that was like a drug of its own. When I used to take it, I'd be stoned down my head. I'd be walking around a 10-year-old child stoned down my fucking head. Yeah. And then that led on to more, I'd say, more serious prescription drugs that were prescribed to me as well, that was more severely dangerous than the actual Ritalin. And that just automatically led into the smoking heroin. Like I smoked heroin before I took cocaine, before I took ecstasy, do you know what I mean? But you know what I find, like, you'll get so close and so used to the same therapist, and then all of a sudden they're gone, boom, it's changed. And you have to build that relationship with another therapist, and that's head-wrecking, because you don't trust easy, you know what I mean?
Because you're opening up about very personal things. And
then when they walk out of your life, like that, it's just like it just feels like another person used you for what you could get, and then walked out of your life. By many different people have been given second chances, so there is people out there in my life who won't give me another chance because of the things that I did, and you know, many second chances can you give someone. There's one thing like I found out about, I did really find this out the hard way. The only people who cared about you in this world are your parents. And that's true to God. And you find that out when you're sitting in the cell on your own with no money, no clothes, crying for a visit. You see who come and visit you, you know what I mean? Out of sight, out of mind.
I took a lot away from listening to Jason tell me his story. I was happy for Jason that he won his battle with addiction, and how he now uses his platform to educate others and share some insight into the difficult life that revolves around addiction. I'm now meeting a man by the name of Greg Williams. Greg is a working musician who had his own battle with alcohol. I was able to grab a quick interview with him to hear more about his journey and how he came to where he is now.
Yeah, so I suppose I grew up in a house in Clondalkin there. I've one brother and one sister there. I'm a middle child. Yeah, I went to an all-Irish school called Clash and Killian. For the household was just that really. I suppose that Irish household, the traditional Irish household at that as well. My father played music, and 15, 16, 17 I started heavy alcohol abuse at the time. And this kind of led me to a lot of areas with people that had experienced hardship, and I got to see a lot of the people that were an awful lot worse off than me, and I come from a less, I suppose, privileged background than myself. Yeah, and these people interest me, you know, because I noticed that there was a certain spirit that was, I suppose, grafted by their hardship. I felt a loneliness, you know. I felt like there was something wrong with me, and this led me to alcohol, like many other people, I'm sure. I kind of found, I suppose, happiness in the alcohol. The times when I was severely intoxicated were times where, I suppose I felt something in my heart, I suppose, a love or a happiness that wasn't there. And we started drinking on the school premises type thing, splitting up flagons of cider, I think is what I started drinking on. Yeah, that was the cheap thing out of Tesco, and this kind of led to me never having any money, first of all, so this led to a lot of theft in my household. And, to be honest, I was a bollocks to me mother and my father a lot of the time as well. I didn't deserve it. Yeah, and then I ended up getting kicked out of the house at, I don't know, it was 2021, and I ended up on the street for a little bit. I was down and out, and I suppose one of the only things I had was my guitar. So I started doing a little busking here and there, you know, to get money up for alcohol and whatever else depending on the night. But yeah, that led me then. I remember I was playing somewhere and a guy came out of his bar and he asked me did I want a little gig in his bar. He thought it was very good, and you know, I went in, I did that gig, and then a vicious cycle had started then, yes, of playing and a lot of time being paid in points and being bought points by bystanders, and that led to even more drinking, I suppose. Yeah, and this started then to kind of wear me down in a way, and I noticed it was affecting them me performances and stuff after a long period of a type thing, you know, which made me question, do I want to, which one is it, you know, is it alcohol or is it music? There's a choice had to be made at some stage, and one thing led to another, I suppose, and the world started to open up for me for once in my life, you know, rather than being closed shut type thing. Yeah, and I got gigs around, and then I ended up getting a big gig in the academy there, and in front of couple of thousand people, and then that really broke me through. It was hard. I was too proud at the beginning, you know. A lot of these I'd went to a lot of the meetings, and I suppose I'd become aggravated. It was a belittling thing, you know, to admit it. I suppose I was running from it. I didn't want to face what I was, you know. I didn't want to look in the mirror. Then I met a guy called Ben. He was a addictions counsellor at the time, and kind of connected with him. We had a lot of similar interests, which again was a big thing for me. And then when I was getting gigs, he was helping me along with basically the management of the thing, you know what I mean, booking the gigs. And I hadn't got them sources in a way. Neither had I got that knowledge or the patience to be I suppose contacting different places. And that type thing kept happening, and then I eventually just took him up as my manager, and now he's my manager there the last bit. Jeez, I'd say about 6 years now, Ben is my manager, yeah.
For how long then were you addicted to alcohol?
I'd say it would have been about 10 years, I'd say, yeah. About 10 years on that heavy addiction. I'm clean now, 3 years, yeah. So it was a long, lengthy 10-year spell. I feel like I lost years in them 10 years, yeah. Thinking back, it's like I played click of a finger, I suppose. I went that quick, yeah. The Irish government, they seem to like it, to make it harder on common people and the people that have no money to start with, you know. That's who they like to pick on. The whole rise in alcohol prices, although it's under the guise of, look, we're doing something good for you, or, you know, as if it's going to stop people buying alcohol. I think that's a lot of bullshit, you know. The fact of the matter is, people are going to buy the alcohol, you know. They're just going to end up spending more money on the alcohol, which is going to take money probably out of their kids, or out of their lives in any way, you know what I mean. So it's a ridiculous thing. It's a really ridiculous thing. It's important that humanity is, you know, it's there for each other, and that if it's not working on, you know, the common level between people type thing, and it's not, we're not respecting each other, it all falls at the top levels. And I think that's what you can see. You can see that in the world now with the politics, and with kind of systems that are put in place, becoming they're hurt because people don't have any respect for each other anymore. A lot of people don't anyway. We're doing a little type gig thing where all the proceeds for the gig will go back to the centre. I've got a few independent Irish artists, and a few bigger names as well will be at the gig. You can have a look at that now on the regulars.ie. Go there, and it's €10 ticket, and you can be sure that 100% of them proceeds will go to that addiction centre.
Yeah, things are going well for you, but there was a long period in time where things weren't going so well for you. For people that are having their own difficulties, whether that be with alcohol, drug use, in their own struggles, what advice would you give to them?
I just feel like everybody has some sort of interest, you know, some sort of light in the darkness of life. Music was my salvation, you know. Other people have their salvations, or they have things they love, and things that can pull them out of that that horrible headspace you're in when you're addicted to something. So I'd say really just work at what you love, you know, and work at what puts you in type of a blissful type state in a way, yeah. And if you follow that, you will find, as I found, you know, that the world in a way starts to open up for you, and doors. And it's as if, to be honest with you, as if something else is at work, you know, that you when you're off path, you know, nothing is working, and then next thing you know, when you're following what you love, everything starts to come together, really, yeah. Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend, and I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If you have tears you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to to lean on me when you're not strong. And I'll be your friend, and I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody